Good evening, Demon fans, and welcome back to a special trade period wrap-up edition of the Demonland podcast. My name is Andy, and tonight I'm joined by regular Demonland co-host Grapeviney. Good evening, Grapeviney. How are you?
Thank you, Andy. Good evening.
Also joining us tonight to discuss all things trade is our man on the outer, George. George on the outer. Good evening. How are you?
Good evening, Andy. Good evening, Grapeviney. Isn't trade...
Oh, George, we lost you for a second, but I bet you were just about to say, isn't trade period the best time of the year?
It is. It's just fantastic. 6 weeks ago, we were all miserable and suffering a severe case of MFC, SS, and now people are upbeat and hopeful, enthusiastic, although I've heard that Sir Why Little and Picket Fence have ordered some fresh razor blades for their own personal use.
Yes, no doubt that they have. Demonland's been going since 2000, and every year, this time of the year, it's always full of hope. Fresh players leaving. It's a new beginning at Demonland. But we're still yet to taste that ultimate glory. So let's hope this new beginning is something great. We might start the show. Well, before we do that, if you would like to join us tonight, join in on the discussion. We do want to hear from you. Are you happy with the trades, angry with the trades, you're ambivalent, or just plain sick of seeing Joe Danaher's mug all over your social media feeds? Give us a call. We love hearing from Demon Ladders and fans of the show. Join us. You can give us a call 03 9016 3666, or give us a Skype on Demonland 31. If you're listening to the show live, join us in the chat room. If you don't want to give us a call, you can ask questions and post comments. Just head over to demonland.com/podcast. If you're listening to this later on at your leisure, via SoundCloud on demonland.com or via Apple or an Android podcasting app, be sure to subscribe to the podcast and you can receive updates when a new show drops. Hopefully we'll do another one after the draft. Don't forget to leave us a favourable review. It does help more people find us. We're also on Spotify, so get over there and you can listen to the show that way too, or just head over to demonland.com and you can find links to your preferred method of listening. Of course, you can follow us on social media, Facebook at facebook.com/Demonland31, Twitter at Demonland, on Instagram at Demonland31, or go to YouTube and search for Demonland Podcast and you can listen to some of the great interviews that we've conducted with current and past players and coaches. Or if you just love talking about the Dees 24/7 all year round, the last couple of weeks we've just been talking trades. Head over to demonland.com and chat with other Dees about this great club. Now, guys, we might just start off the show, and I might go to you, Grapeviney, first, and ask you, going into trade week, what were your expectations of what the Dees would happen? What would be involved in? What do you think would happen?
I don't know that I knew what I thought was going to happen, more what I hoped was going to happen. Yes. And I guess that was to pick up some outside run. Hopefully, all players that we picked up would have the requisite skills in terms of kicking and things like that. But look, mainly the outside run. Hopeful for a small forward too. Obviously, we don't have that at this stage, but I think we've done pretty well so far in terms of Langdon and Tomlinson in addressing that other area, which I think we'd probably all agree was a sore point.
George, what were your hopes and dreams going into trade week?
I think I'd recall previous recruiting managers and coaches that we've talked to over the years who all say the same thing, which is you trade for your needs and you draft for your talent. And I think Grapeviney's just identified a couple of the needs we had. Small forward, outside run. I suspect we also need probably another big forward. But when you look at what's available in the draft and how quickly we were able to get certainly the wingers in Langdon and Tomlinson on board, I think that was a fantastic response. I recall also Josh Marnie saying during the trade period that Melbourne had tried 15 people on the wing during the season. So that sort of indicates probably the top priority that the club had, and we certainly filled that priority very well.
Yeah, it's an interesting point you bring up about who we tried on the wing. We did try a lot of players, and none of them, some of them are not even, that's not their main position. Angus Brayshaw started the year out there. We thought he was playing out there because he was carrying an injury, and obviously they didn't want to exacerbate that injury by playing sort of an inside mid role, and it sort of didn't work for him on the wing. Jonesy was tried there. There was a number of players, and then injuries, of course, sort of necessitated us playing players there that probably shouldn't have been playing there. What I thought I might do is we'll go through the individual trades that we were involved in, and then I'll get your thoughts on that.
Just before we do that, yep. Andy, just to pick up on something that George said, I'm just curious because there was a lot of discussion about whether we did require an additional key forward. I'm of the view that we're probably all right with Wiedemann, McDonald, and then medium sizes, Fritsch, Melksham and Petraka probably still spending a fair bit of time through there. But, there was quite a bit of debate about whether we've got enough there with McDonald and Wiedemann.
And we might touch on that a bit later on because after we discuss the actual no, that's fine. I didn't really discuss with you guys the format I wanted to take. I think what we'll do is we'll discuss the individual trades we were involved in. Then I got sort of a list of players that a lot of people on Demonland were sort of throwing forward that we should look at, and where our deficiency were mostly in forward line, both tall and small. So maybe once we discuss those players, we can discuss our thoughts on whether we actually do need those players or not, and whether you thought we were actually going for these guys, whether they wanted to come to us or not. So we'll discuss that in a moment. But the first trade to drop for us wasn't really a trade. It was the Adam Tomlinson, bringing him in, signed on as an unrestricted free agent. The Giants received a second-round draft pick as compensation. At the time, that was pick 40. I'm sure that's gone beyond that at the moment. So Tomlinson, we sort of knew going into the trade period. We knew this before the trade period during the finals. Even in the first couple of weeks of the finals, we knew Tomlinson was going to be leaving the Giants, and we were we were the only suitor at the time, I think. And we got the man pretty early on. It was one of the first trades to drop. So, Grapevine, you happy with bringing Tomlinson into the team?
Look, I am. I don't think he's not a world beater, but he's performed pretty well for GWS over 4 seasons now, I think. Look, he didn't have a great final series by any stretch of the imagination, and I think that a lot of the criticism that he's copying on Demonland is based off those 2 games, including the granny. But look, as has also been pointed out online, he's been consistently selected for the Giants going back over a number of years. It's not easy to make their 22. And that's a sign of the quality of player. And I don't think there's any doubt that he strengthens our list.
George, you happy with Tomlinson?
Yeah, totally agree. As Grapevine just said, the fact that he's a regular participant in a very, very talented side, I think is a very good sign for us. I think his finals form was also made difficult by the fact that he was used as a backup ruck. It's pretty hard to play a wing role and then go into the bash and crash of the ruck role and expect it to come back and play well. But in the final against Richmond, I don't think there were too many GWS players who did did play well, so he wasn't on his own in that case. But I think he'll add exactly what we need in a wing role. He's a big guy. He can run. He can take a mark. We can only wait and see now. But given what else was available in the draft in those roles, unless you were looking at a Brad Hill and having to pay a lot of money for that, there weren't too many other of that outside running type role players, and I think we got 2 out of the 3 that were available.
They've drafted. They've said they're going to play him on the wing. I believe that's sort of how they sold it to him. He has, we know, played up forward, and you did mention, that some of his final form was sort of impacted because he did have to play that crash and bash ruck, sort of backup ruck. But I reckon I've got news for you. I think we've also got him in to play that exact role, because I can guarantee you he's going to be now the backup ruck to Maxi, where Maxi goes off for that rest for the last 5 minutes of quarters and stuff like that. He will definitely be the ruckman, rather that, we've sort of complained a little bit about having to take out T-Mac or Wiedemann out of the forward role, leaving us one tall forward short in that period of time while they're playing backup ruck. I guarantee you that's the role Tomlinson's going to be playing. I'm not sure if he's aware of that yet, but I can guarantee you he's going to be used in that capacity for sure. Do you agree with that sentiment? Do you think he will play that role, or am I off the mark there?
No, I agree with you. It depends on who you're playing as well. The Bruce option is still there for us, but the pity of last season in particular was whenever we only had that one ruckman available in Max, you had to pinch either a T-Mac or a Wiedemann out of the forward line, and that just created more problems in itself. This is going to create having Tomlinson there as an option is going to be a fantastic option for us to be able to still leave the forward line intact while he fills that role. So, and I think the same thing will apply to Langdon. When you've got people who can play multiple roles, then you're not disadvantaged, as we were so badly during the season with the injuries that we had all around the ground.
Yeah, the thing I like about Tomlinson as well, and you mentioned it, was the fact that he's played, what were his stats in terms of, I think he'd played 80 or something of the last
83 of 84, I think.
Yeah, and that's what we need. I mean, just our luck, he'll come to us and spend some time on the sidelines. But that's just my MFCSS coming through. But that's sort of good to see. You want players that are consistently on the park.
Does MFCSS get a 6-week break like all the players do?
No,
during this period or something?
It's fully entrenched in my everyday life. So that's Tomlinson. I'm happy with it. You've watched his highlights. I like what I see, but then again, highlights, everyone looks good in highlights. We went in with into the trade period wanting, one of our biggest deficiencies is how we use the wings and that outside run, and we've picked up 2 guys who that is what they do. So good on the MFC for going out and getting exactly what we needed. So that brings us to Ed Langdon. We received Langdon, pick 26, and Freo's future 4th round pick for our picks, 22, 79, and our future 2nd round pick. Were you happy with the trade? Not about whether you're happy whether we got Langdon, but the trade as it stands. Did we win that trade? Did we give up too much? Did we get bent over a barrel?
I think it's absolutely not. As you say, you put Langdon to one side, 26 for 22 is really probably not that much of a difference. And then, once you're into the 79s and 4th rounds and 2nd rounds, and
but
it doesn't matter a whole lot. Look, people, you tally up the points and you worry about next year's draft. The focus has got to be, heavily weighted towards the short term or the short and medium term. and I see this as a good trade in that sense.
George, your thoughts on the trade?
I'm not a great fan of all the talk around trades about whether you've won or lost, or whether you should have given this pick away or not. At the end of the day, you've got two parties who have to agree, and if you don't want to agree, then you walk away from it. And I think it's a good sign that we've got that at a very early stage in this 10-day period, we got our trades done, and then you go on to the next one, and that may well have been critical in terms of what will fall out of all of this when we get to the draft stage. But whether we give pick 22 or whether we give a future third round, who cares? We've got Langdon, which is exactly what we wanted. So all credit must go to Marnie for that, for getting it done quickly and getting it done. How does Papley and Danaher feel? How do Essendon and Sydney feel about, and Carlton as well? They couldn't get their trades done. We got what we wanted.
And we got them done fairly early in the piece. It seems like we don't muck around. We identify the players that we want, the players that we need. We go out and get those trades done. So, full credit to the Dees for getting out on the front foot and getting these trades done. It seems like in this case with Langdon, Bell he didn't seem to be playing funny buggers like perhaps he did last year with Hogan. It was good on the Dees for getting those done fairly quickly. And it seems like in the wash-up of everything, the Tomlinson and Langdon parts were sort of forgotten when they were talking about all the trades and stuff that was done. They got lost, but we got that done very early. So good on the club for doing that. But Langdon as a player, you happy with that, boys?
Look, I'm ecstatic. I've watched a lot of Ed Langdon. I saw almost all the highlights packages that were on the thread, and he's exactly what we need. Look, I'm being completely honest. I watch a lot of games involving neutral games, non-Melbourne games, but for some reason I don't see any of these players or know how good they are. But
George.
Yeah, very pleased with what we've seen. He seems to have that bit of pace which has been so dramatically lacking. He's obviously got a bit more pace than Tomlinson, but he's exactly what we need. So very happy with that all round. I think the other thing that people forget in terms of these trades getting done early is because we trade for further picks in the draft and further down the draft and next year, we can then move on to the next trade knowing what we've got in our back pocket. It puts us in a better position at the later points in the trade period. People who spend the 10 days stuffing around trying to get something done and quibbling over a few positions in the draft, at the end of the day don't get it done. So I think we move on to the next one and move on to the next one after that, and that's a real credit to us. Much happier with the way we do things and happy with what we've got. So,
yeah, I've got to agree.
Yeah. So we'll move on to Sam Frost. This sort of came when it was initially sort of reported. I think we go back to about September 10th. I saw a post. Not initially on Demon Land, but our good friend and co-host of the show on occasions, Super Mikado, on Twitter under his @DemonBlog account. He posted Sam Frost, and this I think was September 10th, Sam Frost spotted at Waverley Park. I would dead set punch on. I sort of messaged him and said, where'd you hear this? And he said someone that he knew or had relayed that information to him. I didn't get any more information than that. Then that sparked the 66-page thread on Demonland regarding Sam Frost. So a few days later, or a day and a bit later, it was then being reported that we weren't going to be offering Sam Frost a contract, or I don't think we'd offered him anything. I don't think it was even a matter of us sort of lowballing him. I think we weren't offering him anything. What's your memory of that situation? I haven't gone back and read the post. Grapevine, do you remember
there was a bit of conjecture about that, but I think you're right that ultimately the club, certainly to the point, to that point, hadn't made an offer, no.
Did that shock you, George? I'll ask you first. Were you shocked? I will mention that he did. Sam Frost finished 9th in the Demons BNF, and maybe later in the show he might just talk about the BNF. He finished 9th in the BNF. He finished 8th in the Demonland Player of the Year. Were you shocked that we weren't going to be? That we were considering trading him? Obviously, there are probably factors involved in that, particularly maybe getting some salary cap relief. But he was one of our best backmen this year.
He's one of our only backmen this year.
And there's a lot of obviously Omac isn't a favourite on Demonland. And in the wider Demon community. So were you shocked that we weren't considering keeping him? Obviously, he was out of contract, so he was in that prime position to be traded. But contracts, we know, don't really mean much in this day and age anyway. So how do you feel with that, George?
I think that was the critical factor when it all comes down to it about the contract position. You're up for negotiation. The players looking for better offers. If someone else is offering something better, then it's fair enough that they go and try and pursue that. I think Sam became a fan favourite. Those wild rushes out of defence and the long booming kicks. Everybody remembers those, but I think they also remember the wild turnovers that occurred. But still, between him and Oscar, they held the back line together for the first half of the year. And I think we should be grateful for that, even though a lot of people might criticise Oscar, but he took the heat for a lot of big forwards because we had no one else. So, but Sam, when you look through the list, who would we have had otherwise to trade? You don't want to be trying to trade, or you don't want to trade out the Olivers and the Brayshaws and the real talent of the side. So you start to look at that second tier of players who you can trade and get some value. Then are they in or out of contract? And unfortunately, in Sam's case, timing was the critical factor. So it's not surprising. I'd like to know why Super Mercado was hanging out at Hawthorn, though.
I think he just waits out there, just waiting to see if any Melbourne players.
I've got visions of him now standing outside that concrete bunker out at Waverley. You'll have to explain it to us, I think.
Yeah, I think it was someone had relayed that information to him. I don't think he was sitting outside a service station.
Maybe he was part of the push to bring Uze back to Melbourne.
Let's hope so. Perhaps we can talk about that as well a bit later on, because I'd love to see Uze back at the club, but that's not happening at the moment. So just on Sam Frost, Grapevine, did it come as a shock to you, or?
Not really. I think, as George said, when you look through the list and where sort of strength and depth and numbers lie, Sam's probably surplus. Or we've got a number of big backs. Harrison Petty's in the conversation. He's also possibly in the conversation up the other end of the ground too. But May and Lever are going to be the main two there, and then you've got the likes of Hoare and Hibberd, Nev, and Oscar possibly playing a role too. So. Wasn't shocked, and not all that distressed about Sam's departure. Wish him all the best, though.
Oh yeah, definitely, absolutely. Where I was sort of shocked, it was just with my own MFC SS. And for those not familiar with the term, the Melbourne Football Club supporters syndrome, where we've had that veil of negativity just over us. Now, I'm thinking, if May, with his hammy issues, if he goes down, multiple times during the year, and Lever, we haven't got full year out of him yet. If he has any flare-ups, we are light down back, and I would hate to have to rely on Oscar as our main.
But the truth is, if you have numerous injuries to key players over the year in any part of the ground, you're going to be in trouble.
Yeah.
It happened up forward this year. It happened down back.
Yeah.
It didn't really happen with the midfield. They had most of their injuries pre-season,
yes,
and were afflicted with the post-surgery stuff. But yeah, that's a reality, and you can only have so much depth and coverage.
Yeah, 2019 has just shell-shocked me, so forgive me. So the Sam Frost trade, traded to Hawthorn along with pick 42 and 61. We then received Hawthorn's pick 50 and their future second-round pick, which when you compare that with the Langdon one, we had given up a future second round, so we sort of got that back with that trade.
Which goes to George's point that when you get your deals done quickly and efficiently, you know what you need to get back and what you're still able to give away in the future. So that proves that point exactly.
So I'll start with George. The trade as it is, taking Sam Frost out of the picture, just all the other sort of, or even with Sam Frost in it, how do you think we went with that particular trade?
Just the Sam Frost trade?
Yeah, the Sam Frost trade, just on that one.
As I said, he was the one, unfortunately, at the wrong time, I suppose, from in terms of being at Melbourne, but good luck to him. He's off to Hawthorn now. He'll fill a hole very nicely down at Hawthorn, particularly with Frawley getting towards the end of his career. So it'll be interesting to see whether Mr. Clarkson can take that wild element out of him, but I suspect that that may not be the case. So good luck to him. But we just have to concentrate on we've got May and Lever. Hopefully that they will be there for the season. As Grapevine said, we've got a good group of other backmen available. I don't think the deficiencies down the back. I think our deficiency, should it ever occur, is more up the forward line. But we'll talk about that a bit later on, I think.
Yep, and just I guess you have the same theory in regards to what we gave up and what we got back with the Langdon trade. So
whatever works for both parties works for both parties. That's fine. Hawthorn got their man. We got a couple of picks. We cleared a bit of salary space, I suppose, and every party walks away. And next year we might be dealing with Hawthorn for something else. And it's good to have a good relationship with the other trade managers. I think it's well known that some people are very stubborn and pig-headed about trading, and those reputations do precede them. And it's not surprising that yet again this year the same people have failed to get the deals over the line who had those reputations.
Yeah, exactly. We'll move on to the other sort of the bombshell sort of came down in the last day or two when we swapped. We did this bold pick swap. With North Melbourne, sort of putting all of our putting our faith in the 2020 season and the fact that we believe that we'll have a good year, and we've traded in pick 8 from North Melbourne. We gave up pick 26, pick 50, and our future first round pick next year. Now that's a big one. Now when you talk about futures and all that, you win future seconds and fourths, whatever, but future first, that is a big one. What are your thoughts on that? Obviously, we get pick 8 giving us 2 picks in the top 10, which is massive this year. And there's the theory next year that there's a lot of academy picks and father-son picks. So first round, could be pushed up. But if we come bottom, pick one going to North, that's not a good prospect. Thoughts? I'll go to you, George, first. What's your thoughts on that trade? You can pick it apart.
I think I'll pick up on the last point that you made, that if we finish bottom next year, we've got more problems than worrying about the draft.
That's true.
And what we traded away this year to get. This was an absolute ripper of a trade from our perspective, in the sense that we've gone from one pick in the top 10 to suddenly 2, and all the consequences that have now come out of that, about the discussions about whether GWS are going to pick Green with pick 3 or not, whether Freo will do a similar sort of arrangement to try and move up with their interest in one of their academy players. All of this is now possible because we've done this trade. If we just sat with pick 3, there wouldn't be this discussion in a sense. So it gives us something in the back pocket. It gives us the possibility of improving our position right up to trade night now. But it was a ripper of a trade. And I think the important thing that everybody obviously has picked up on is that we're backing ourselves not to finish bottom in next year, so that we're not actually giving away all that much. So it was a bolt from the blue after all the other trades had been done. I suspect Marnie, again, had been doing a fair bit of work in the background to get this one up and running, and finding out, which club amongst the other 17 was prepared to put something along these lines up, and he found North Melbourne. So good luck to us, and maybe good luck to North Melbourne next year, but we hope that won't be the case.
Why would North have? I can see why we've done that to bring that in. What do you put your North Melbourne hat on for a moment? Why would they have done this trade? Obviously, they're backing us to have a crap year, but that may or may not happen. What's the benefit from their perspective? I know they got picked 26 and 50, but with the North Melbourne hat, what's the benefit for them? What are they seeing that we're not, or are they crazy?
I really don't know, because I don't follow North sufficiently well, but it's interesting. I do have a mad North Melbourne acquaintance who said many years ago North Melbourne are in the position where they can never bottom out, so they keep having to select a lot of mid-range players just to keep themselves in the middle of the pack. It'll never get them to the point, unfortunately, of getting towards premiership, but just as equally, the worst thing that can happen to them as a club is to finish down the bottom somewhere. So picking up a couple of extra picks this year, and potentially another mid-range pick, if Melbourne finishes in the middle of the pack next year, picking up an additional pick suits their long-term ideas, but maybe they just are crazy.
Grapeviney, your thoughts on that trade?
I'm like George, I loved it. I actually couldn't believe it when I saw it, which goes to the other point of, putting the North Melbourne hat on. I can't see why they'd do it unless, they're just extremely confident that we're going to bomb out next year and they're going to get, a first or second pick. But I love what Marnie's done. As George said, getting the two picks inside 10 this year is great. And look, it's funny reading about it on the forum. Goodwin's critics paint moves like this as, Goodwin gambling and trying to save his skin next year, and, we're going all in next year. Well, what do you want them to do? Would you rather that he plot a slow 3-year course back to the finals? We should be going all in next year, and I agree that if we do, finish at the lower end of the table, we've got more issues than a missed number 1 pick or a missed number 2 pick. So I love it. It gives us a lot of flexibility. Going into it this year.
If you want to follow along next year how that pick is going, there is a Twitter account called at Dees pick. There was a at Crows pick going the whole year, which sort of documented where Adelaide and Carlton were situated in terms of, they kept weekly, almost per game updates of who had the pick, which pick Adelaide and Carlton had with their pick swap. There is now that same thing for the where you can track North Melbourne's future first round draft pick throughout 2020.
I love it that a draft pick has got its own Twitter handle, although I must say I was a bit annoyed when about 10 minutes after it was created, it had 3 times as many followers as I've got. So I shudder to think about how many people are following it now.
Well, I can tell you that. Excuse me, I've got a bit of a cough going here. The at Crow's pick currently has 4,318 picks, and we know the result of who got what in that one. The at Dees pick currently has 749 followers. So I'm sure that will grow throughout the year as the journos all get onto it and sort of retweet it. That's when those things start gathering steam. And I'm sure as those things get updated next year, we'll see more followers jump on board on that one. You can also follow that on demonland.com. We will be having regular updates of that, I'm sure, throughout the year.
I hope there's not too many more followers for that. Very sad.
It is. Now what we might talk about, before we talk about other names that were in the trade, we might just quickly talk about, we had mentioned pick 3 and the prospect of us splitting that pick, and splitting that pick is doing some deal with a team like, for example, GWS, giving them our pick 3 because they've got an academy selection. They want to take. So if we were to nominate this, it's his name Tom Green, not the actor / comedian Tom Green, that player Tom Green. They want to get him. So if we were to nominate him at pick 3. What George, can you explain to me what that means for them? If we didn't do a deal with them and we were to pick him, they could then bid on him. Is that correct?
I'm no expert on this because I sort of give up after trying to follow the third what if. As far as I understand it, if we bid at pick 3, GWS can select him.
Yep.
Providing they lose 20% of the points allocated to that pick, which then affects their subsequent picks. They may not be able to. I can't remember what their second and third pick is. In any case, I'd have to look that up.
It's in the 20s, I think, the second, and then the 40 something.
And so I think they'd lose that pick. I might be wrong with this, but they may lose that pick as a consequence of that. So they pick up one player in green. Now the possibility is if they get above us through trading to get our pick 3, then they can pass on green at 3 and wait until somebody else bids on him, and they don't have to use as many points. And then they can still use their current pick of 11, I think it is, to pick up whoever else they want, and still pick up green at a subsequently later date. And as the picks move through, the points allocated become less and less and less. So from GWS's perspective, at the moment, if we bid on green, they can only pick up one top 10 player.
That's what I understand as well, yeah.
If it goes the other way, then potentially they could pick up 2 players.
Yeah.
So in this case, as Josh Marnie said at the exit interview from the trade period, it's all up to GWS now. They're the ones who've got to come to us with something to offer. So we can only wait and see. And I think the same situation occurs with Fremantle, who've got pick 6 at the moment. And they've got, is it Henry, an academy player? They're in a similar sort of situation. Whether they want to get him at that pick, but or not. So I don't know whether there's been much talk about that one as well. But once again, having this situation all tied up means that the others have got to come to us to try and deal with it, or they just don't bid on green and maybe we'll bid on him in any case. I really don't know enough about the quality of these players.
Yeah, look,
happy to hear anybody else who's got a better idea about it.
Yeah, I think what you've said is sound. I think if we do bid on Green, it means they obviously want to get him. So if my understanding is if they take him, then they won't get another pick until pick 40. That's Whereas if they do a deal with us, they potentially can get 2 top 10 or first round draft picks out of it, which is ideally what they would want. We're holding all the cards in this situation, so they have to do a deal with us. What, in your mind, what's the best result for us there? For me, I wanted to sort of do. There were things thrown out like, what's their pick? They've got pick 6 or pick 7 at the moment, but
6.
Yeah. So there was the thought that we would get pick 6 and their future first round, which who knows what number that's going to be with all the father-son and the academies and next year. But that brings us back into the first round next year. But while the trades were still going on, I did want to see if we could get a player out of them. Obviously, that didn't happen. So going into the draft, is that all we can get out of them now? Give them pick 3 and then take pick 6 in the future first round, and perhaps some later picks later. But that's sort of the best deal we can get now.
I believe that's the case. I might be wrong. I tried to trawl through the AFL rules around drafting, and it just sends me to sleep, unfortunately.
Yeah.
But yeah, at this stage, I think that the player situation is locked up until
that's gone. Yeah.
The actual draft itself. So we can't trade for any more players.
So, Grapeviney, what do you want to see happen with this pick 3? You want to just go with pick 3? Because if we do a deal with them, we are then, I think, the best. I think we get pick 6, so we're then going to potentially miss out on 2 other players that we could have got at pick 3, because obviously they're going to take Green. So...
Yeah, look, I've got to admit I don't know enough about the players at any stage of the draft, including the top end of the draft. So, I've seen some of the names who are around and suggestions about who we might take, but... for me, I guess in my mind, when pick 8 came into the equation, it then sort of thought to me, well, we don't need to split the pick now because in a way we're getting the 2 picks that you would split the pick for. So I'm pretty happy if we go to the draft with 3 and 8, presuming that there are players that can only be sort of got at those picks.
Okay, if we don't split it and we keep 3 and 8 and we take who we think the best available is at the time, do we then go vindictive and cost GWS their picks, or do we play the nice guy and let it fall through?
Well,
do you have to?
What type of a player is Green?
Well, from what I read today, Green is a Clayton Oliver Cripps type player, big-bodied midfielder type player. Don't know about his pace or anything else, or whether he's the handball king and contested possession king or anything, but I saw him described as a big-bodied midfielder.
Yeah, look, he could never have too many good mids.
Well, I'm not suggesting that we're going to get him, whether we force their hand for them to bid on him so that we screw them up, essentially.
Yeah, look, I think in the few names that I've sort of had a look at, names that are being thrown about, I like the idea of getting one of those mids who can go forward and kick goals, or specifically a small forward who does that and maybe can spend a bit of time in the midfield.
How confident are you with our early draft picks? We've had some doozies over the years. We've considering the last decade that we've had, we have featured quite heavily. Obviously, not in the past couple of years because we've traded out our first round picks, but in the last decade we have had quite a few misses. We've had a hit here or there. We've also split picks and missed out on players like Josh Kelly. How confident are you that our...
I'm pretty confident. You know, you're putting a few administrations together there to go back over the decade. You know, going back to sort of Craig Cameron days or even earlier. But, I think when we have been at the top end of the draft in recent years, we've done pretty well, I would have thought, you know, Oliver, Brayshaw, Petrarca. So, I've got faith.
George?
I think the Jason Taylor era we've been more successful than not, and I think the people forget as well that you've got to separate the draft from the trade period, in the sense that the draft now is Jason Taylor's game. He's been looking at the talent that's available. I don't know whether Green's a great player or not. He does. Is Green going to be a better pick at pick 3, or is there someone else out there who he might think is a better pick at pick 3? We have to have the faith in these guys. That's their job. They spend all year looking at these younger players, and they have a fairly good idea about what's available out there. And that if GWS come back to us with something, some offer, once again, we have to evaluate whether that offer is a better one for us in terms of who we think is the best out there and what we can otherwise get. I think the other consideration that we've got to take into account is that basically we've been out of this top first-round draft pick for a couple of years now, and we don't want to be in the situation that we found ourselves in, you know, some time ago, where there's this lack of a big gulf of talent missing in the club at a certain age group. We've got to start, if we're going to get the talent, if we get a 17 or 18-year-old this year, they're not going to make all that much difference to the team next year. But in 2 or 3 years' time, we really need to make sure that we've got that talent still continuing to come through. The bottom can drop out very quickly once you get yourself in that situation. So I'm a little bit more in favour of, we've gone trading to fill the holes. Now we should be loading up on the talent while we can. So,
well, let's hope that that pick 8 swap works out, and because going into next year without a first rounder, who knows what can happen there. Well, we still might do the deal with GWS. I think what we'll do now. We talked about our forward line deficiency, or the perceived forward line deficiency. You guys might have different thoughts on that. There were quite a few forwards floating around a trade period, and even though there was a lot of discussion about certain forwards, Josh Bruce, Josh Jenkins, there was Papley, there's Martin, there's Butler. Our name wasn't really thrown around with some of these guys. So you didn't hear a lot of us being connected with any of these players. A few whispers here and there, but I don't think anything solid. Do you think we were genuinely looking to cover our deficiencies up forward, whether small forward, particularly small forward, but also with a big-bodied forward?
Yeah, Josh Marnie kind of ruled it out in one of his radio interviews and said that they hadn't been looking at it during the trade period. So it would seem that none of those names were ever really in serious contention.
I was a little bit concerned about the comment that he made in regards to that, because he did mention the fact that all right, we have had obviously our issues this year with our forward line with injuries, and we had T-Mac sort of beginning of the year was out of form, possibly carrying an injury, started coming good and then was injured again, and we know the issues that Wiedemann had and ended up having hip surgery later. So we had issues with our tall forwards this year, but he did make mention of the fact that in 2018 we had no problems sort of scoring. And I guess this year we didn't have problems of getting the ball into the forward line, but in 2018 he made mention that we didn't have problems scoring. But we also got to remember that 2018 team is different to the team that's going to line up in 2020, because Garlett's not there, Hogan's gone.
guy named Cam Peterson's not there.
Yeah, exactly. I forgot about Peterson. He's not there. So I was a little bit concerned about that comment. But, yeah, I don't know. I thought we need some crumbing forwards, genuine goal kickers. And I don't think we have that even with the younger talent we've got there. And
it's interesting because we tried to bring in Jamie Elliott, and Elliott is a small forward, but he's not a crummer either. He's very much, and he would have been an upgrade, but very much in the Mitch Hannon mould. Able to take a spectacular mark and, very good on the lead and good hands. So it's interesting that the one small forward we were heavily associated with was not the crummer that certainly most of us think that we need.
Well, let's talk about Jamie Elliott for a second. Now, I fully believe that we were used and abused in that. 100% his manager used us to get a better deal out of Collingwood. Then when Brisbane came into the picture, they were used as well, particularly the optics of having him being paraded around the Gabba, which isn't even their training facility. That was fully staged, I reckon, and it was all to get a better deal out of Collingwood. I don't think he was going anywhere, and unless Collingwood really said, all right, because they had put an offer down to him, but I think he was always going to take that. And he was just waiting for maybe if they could sweeten it, which I think maybe they did with offering. Did they offer an extra year or not, or the potential for an extra year? Whatever the case.
I think they came up with an extra year for him.
Yeah, so
3 instead of 2.
So we were used in that. I don't think we were ever a genuine chance, but we did chase him. So obviously they thought we did need someone who's a genuine goal kicker. But obviously, if he did come to us, there's that chance that he's an injury-prone player. He's missed 2 whole years in the last 5 or 6. But then our name wasn't really out there for any of the Dan Butlers, Jack Martins, Papley. Obviously, well, he was contracted. Do we still need a genuine crummer? Ready-made?
I have the feeling that there was a couple of things in play here. Firstly, the priorities that the football department would have put on the type of our needs. So while we're out chasing Tomlinson and Langdon, they're the first things that we have to get over the line. And then I suspect that Elliott was the third thing that was to be looked at, and maybe something else. So while that, I suspect that's why our name wasn't heard chasing all these other players, because we had actually gone off and done what we wanted to, and then having cleared that, we might have been in discussions at a later point. I still think there's a need, but again, at Josh Marnie's exit interview, he talked about the small forward. They think they can fill that internally. There's a few players that, on Demonland that have been thrown around, and I'd probably have to agree with them, but the football department would have a better idea of the capabilities of whether someone like Lockhart can do the job. And is Petty likely to make that step up again next year as that third tall in the forward line? Again, it all comes down to the priorities. We got what we wanted. We didn't get the nice icing on the cake in this case. Perhaps it would have cost us a lot to put that icing on. But as he said, you've got to have a faith in your current group of players to make that next step. So at this point, we just have to trust them.
Grapeviney, thoughts on small forwards? Who's going to fill that role next year?
Yeah, look, I thought Lockhart showed quite a bit of promise this year in the games that he played. So that is a possibility. I know that there are a few names being thrown around as possible draft prospects. Is Cody Waitman the son of Dale, or a relation of Dale Waitman?
I've seen his name there, and I just assumed he was. And what worries me there is that wouldn't they take him as a father-son? And I haven't heard that being thrown around. If he was a gen, what's his name? Cody Waitman.
Look, I've got faith in the forward line. To kick enough goals next year. We had enough forward entries in most games this year. I think once the connection is back, and once McDonald and hopefully Sam can play some consistent, regular football, and I think there's enough sort of variety and X factor in those that sort of surround them, and I'm thinking primarily of Fritsch, Petraka and Melksham, that we should be able to get by even if we don't add to current stocks, but it'd be good to.
I've just looked up him on the internet, and on the AFL Draft Central page, there's no mention of the word Dale in there, and you would think that's a shoo-in to be mentioned if he was the son of, so I don't think he is.
Do you think there's a lot of faith being put in Wiedemann this year to come through? Because if he doesn't develop this year, we've got a forward line of Tom Mack.
Yeah. Yep. I think there is. Can you get by just with the one tall and a series of sort of mids and smalls around you? I don't know.
I suppose it's a big question. You look at Richmond when they only had Rewalt down forward line, didn't do a great deal. As soon as they put Lynch in there, they look rather awesome.
Yeah.
Look, Sam had a really good end to 2018, had a forgettable 2019, and those good games seem a long time ago now, but still very young. So let's see how he goes this year, and I think we'll know more at the end of this year about how good Sam Wiedemann's going to be.
Yeah.
Yeah, the other one I wasn't too keen on trying to get Josh Jenkins in. I know no one sort of wanted to touch him, but then when you look at his stats and you see, he's a 2-goal-a-game player, and we could have potentially got him quite cheaply. I was surprised we weren't looking there, but obviously they think we're right in that area.
Well, unless you're going to play the three talls, if you bring in someone who's going to play right now, a Josh Bruce or a Josh Jenkins, then you're effectively declaring the Wiedemann project finished already, aren't you?
Yeah. I'm glad we didn't get Jenkins. He might get 2 goals a game, but it's because he's a great big huge body that just sits in the goal square. He doesn't do very much work at all outside that. So while that's useful, and also he's got a pair of iron hands as well. He doesn't take too many overhead marks. It's usually when he's got a smaller opponent or he's been left out the back. So I was glad that we didn't go for him. Josh Bruce was an interesting one. I still can't work out why the Bulldogs went for him, given they've got Norton and Shackey in their forward line. And I was surprised that St Kilda gave him away, quite frankly, but these are the quirks of the trade.
Yeah, I was my reasoning for sort of wanting to make a play for Josh Bruce was so that we could finally beat St Kilda without him there.
That's all right. Tim Embry's still there.
Yeah, exactly. And also, I think someone on Demonland mentioned that they wanted to see him play an intra-club match so that they could see him kick 18 goals, considering he always stitches us up. So, look, our names wasn't mentioned much with these guys. So either we were knocked back early, or we weren't going for them. So it is what it is, and the trade period is over. Now that it is over, how did you rate if you had to give a grade? Where do you sit, Grapeviney? I think we had a poll on Demonland. Where did your votes fall there?
This is a tricky one because you really need the passage of time to play out to see.
Just on the face of it, yes.
Look, on face value, I've got to give it a B+.
Yeah, I gave it a B+. Mine was sort of between B and B+, and obviously full time will tell.
Pick 8 takes it into plus territory from what would have been a solid B. So, well done.
George, your thoughts?
Yeah, I'd have to go the same. Looking at other clubs' trades, I'd say most clubs got exactly what they want, apart from a couple of very obvious standouts who got nothing, or a club like Adelaide that's only had departures, and I don't think they've had any arrivals. Adelaide lost 6 players this year in the trade period, which is remarkable. So from our perspective, we got what we wanted. As Grapevine said, the additional pick from North Melbourne was an absolute ripper to move it up to a B+. So I think we've done very well out of what we wanted to achieve and what we did achieve in the end. So full congratulations to Marnie for that.
Well, the poll on Demonland had B+ winning with 27%, B coming next with 22%, then C+ at 13%, B- at 12%, 9% said A-, 8% said A, C was 3%, and we had a couple of 0.83% at the C-, D+, a D, and someone gave us an F. So I'm sure
I can name those posters.
Something to do with fences and something to do with little.
Well, actually, it wasn't. I won't even mention the one that gave an F because.
I bet he's not sorry about it.
No, it wasn't him either. But there you go. That's the trade period done and dusted, and we look forward to the draft, and perhaps we'll do a show.
I'd be interested to find out what people would think about which club did you think got an A out of the trade period.
Well, I think the two that sort of St Kilda and Bulldogs sort of went out. They sort of got the bigger names that were sort of out there. St Kilda had 5 players that they were targeting, and they got them all. So that's got to be.
And they've got no draft picks left.
No, well, that's it. So you got to. So I don't know if they get an A. Definitely not an A+. Maybe between A and a B+ or an A- or something, because they are out of the draft. I think they managed to keep their first next year.
No, their next first draft pick is 51.
No, but next year's draft, there was the conjecture that they might have to give up for Brad Hill the future first. Yeah. They didn't, so they kept that. It seems that they did the best. But then again, remember that year, I think it was not last year, the year before, when Port Adelaide got all those players in, everyone said they got an A+ in the thing and they didn't even make the finals. And I think the same year, Essendon bringing in Sard and Stringer also got the A+, but they failed to make the finals as well. So time's going to tell whether the trade period, but on the face of it, I think St Kilda and Bulldogs did the best out of it. One of the media outlets had us ranked 5th. That sounds about right.
Does it really matter?
No, it doesn't until we see what happens. No, it doesn't.
Yeah, as Grapevine said, the passage of time, and around about the last weekend of September will be next year will be the interesting time to make an assessment about whether it was successful or not.
We mentioned earlier in the program, Adam Uze's name got mentioned. There was talk that the Dees were trying to get him to come over. I think I saw a post someone had put up from Russell Robertson somewhere that actually sort of confirmed that Uze was considering it, but ended up re-signing with the Hawks, and then actually interviewed for the Adelaide job. Didn't get it in the end.
That's probably good for him.
Yeah, I think it's good. I think if we ever do see him come to the Dees, it'll probably be as a coach. But watch his space with what happens with the Dees and Simon Goodwin. But I'd like to see Uze come back, and not necessarily because he played for the Demons, but it sounds like he's got some good credentials behind him. And we've seen the success rate that people who have done their apprenticeships under Clarkson have how they've succeeded. So yeah, I'd like to see him come back at some point. Melbourne, we'll finish it up in a moment, but the Melbourne Best and Fairest was a couple of weeks ago. No surprises who came first. Equal first. I was surprised that there was an equal first. I knew that Max and Clayton would come 1 and 2. I wasn't expecting them to be level. And the fact that Clary was leading going into the last round, must have been leading going into the last round, because Max, we didn't know that, but Max had an outstanding game in the final game, so you would have thought he would have got maximum votes, pardon the pun, in that last game. So Clayton was leading going into the last round, which is what surprised me most out of that. But well done to both of them.
I was also surprised that Clary had a great season, obviously, but I think most of us thought Max would win, and probably win comfortably from Clarence.
Now, the voting. I think they mentioned that 4 people give votes. And they give every player out of 10. So you can get 0 or you can get 10 or anywhere in between. 4 people give the votes, and they tally them up. Were you surprised at some of the other names that came in the top 10? So third was Jack Viney. I think we were probably all surprised at how high Jack finished. George, did that surprise you?
It's always difficult, because the people who are handing out the votes are the coaches, and they're making an assessment about not only whether the player has played a good game, but whether the player has done what them as the coaches wanted them to do. So there's a lot of things going on in the background that we're not aware of. But given our year, I think any player that played 20 plus games would have been high up, because there weren't too many others other than those top 20 players. We didn't have too many available to play a whole season. So,
and you know what,
this year was about endurance rather than skills.
I think you're right there, because when I have a look at the Demonland Player of the Year award, he did come 6th, so I can't be too surprised about that. And the Demonland, we take a whole lot of people give votes after each game, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and we randomly take 3 each week, 3 different ones each week, and then tally up the scores at the end. So Jack did come 6th, though I can't be surprised, but I was surprised. I thought James Harms would have come 3rd, and as it stands, James came 4th, Petraka 5th. No surprise there. He had probably one of his best years for the Dees. Fritsch 6th. Were you surprised Fritchie finishing up so high? He had a great end to the year, but his start to the year wasn't so flash.
The fact is that somebody's got to finish in these places,
yes.
And when you've got the majority of the list has had a poor year,
it's true.
Some of them are going to float to the top. It happened plenty of times in the early part of the decade. And it's happened again this year. I
seem to recall Fritsch, for example, was our sole forward at one stage, wasn't he? So,
well, he took a hit when we spoke to him on the podcast. He'd had a great couple of weeks. I think he'd had plus 10 marks in quite a few games towards the end of the season. So actually, I'm not surprised that he did finish up very strongly. He did come 7th in the Demonland Player of the Year, so 6th in the BNF is good. Salem came 7th, Brayshaw 8th. Frosty 9th, and Jaden Hunt. Jaden did have he sort of flitted in and out, but had a pretty consistent year and makes the top 10. Anything else from you boys? You doing your pre-seasons, ready for a big year? Or are you still on your holidays?
I think the last thing that's just cropped up in the last 24 hours is the pre-season draft now with
yes.
Jack Martin. Yep. And what's going to happen there, and whether we'll get the first crack at him, or whether we're prepared to use the money that we might have used on Elliott on Martin. I don't know. I haven't seen enough of Martin in recent times to know anything about him. Anything that you guys might have seen?
Look, he's had pretty disappointing 6 or 7 years that he's been at the Gold Coast. He had big raps on him, but I don't think he's ever hit those highs. He's a player that's his name's always cropped up on Demonland as sort of someone we should target every time his sort of name's been up there, with out of contract and trying to get him somewhere else. But from what it sounds like, he wants to get to Carlton. Obviously, they couldn't get the deal done on the night, but I have a sneaking suspicion Carlton sort of knew what they were doing in this respect, and if they thought of knew if Gold Coast, maybe they lowballed the offer to the Gold Coast, knowing that he's not going to go to the Gold Coast, even if they pick him up in the pre-season draft, and they probably knew that he's going to put a price on his head that we couldn't or wouldn't match. And from what I've heard, he doesn't want to speak to anyone else except Carlton. So even though we've got the pick before the Blues in the pre-season draft, I don't think he'll get to us. We've made the inquiries apparently. Doesn't want to talk. So, Grapeviney, do you know anything more on this situation?
No, I don't.
Yeah.
But I don't think it's the end of the world if we don't get Jack Martin.
It's going to be an interesting situation. I saw on some news feed tonight that Cochrane, the head of the Gold Coast Suns, said that they'll draft him back if needed. So
what happens there? He said he won't go back there. Would they be that vindictive and they're in their rights to do it?
That's the question. If he puts himself in the draft, then when you're drafted, you're drafted.
So what happens?
If he goes in the pre-season and puts a monetary value on himself, it's up to the club who draft him to pay him that amount. So it'll be interesting. I'd imagine he's on a reasonable wicket up the Gold Coast in any case. So it'll be interesting if Gold Coast were to say, you can stay with us, thanks very much.
So what happens can you put yourself... Do you have to put yourself in the draft to be taken in the pre-season draft, or can you just put yourself in the pre-season draft? Because I imagine if he puts himself in the draft, is he then allowed to put a price on his head in the draft?
In the main draft, you can't put a price. In the pre-season, you have the option of doing that.
So do you have to put yourself in the draft to... or can you put yourself just in a pre-season draft is the question I'm asking, because if he puts himself in the draft, he can't put the price on his head. It means anyone can pick him up, or Carlton have to use one of their picks to pick him up then. That's
correct, yeah. Or he goes into the pre-season draft either with a price on his head or not.
And the price is apparently $700,000, and I don't know if we'd go for that. I don't know what our space is like.
That's right, yeah. It'll be an interesting situation for someone who was a very high draft pick only a couple of years ago. But you would think that Carlton would know a little bit more about him with Silvani having worked at GWS. But on paper he looks good, but at $700,000, if that's his price, it seems a bit excessive for someone who hasn't played all that much football the last couple of years.
Mm. Interesting. Watch this space. I can't see him coming to the Dees, but I wouldn't mind us sort of putting spanners into the works and sort of saying in the media, we're going to take him or something like that, just to maybe drive up his price a bit and cop it.
Yeah, there was another media, I think it was on the Channel 9 News tonight, said that Melbourne had made some initial inquiries about him, which you'd only expect in any case.
Yeah.
So it'll be interesting to see what does fall out of all this. But stranger things have happened in the last couple of weeks around draft time, particularly the pre-season.
Just before we end the show tonight, there are two players on our list who are still uncontracted. That's Jay Kennedy Harris and Billy Stretch. What do you boys suspect is going to happen? There's been a few teams sort of delisting players today. Do you expect either of those to be delisted, or do you think they'll retain them on a year contract or rookie list them or whatnot?
Well, don't we? We've got to have a certain number of players on the list. So, what happens then if we do delist two? Where do we pick up the extra two?
Well, I've seen we've got in the draft. I saw today we had pick 3, pick 8, and they threw out pick 97 was there as well. Is that including if we were to delist those players, do we then get 2 extra picks in the draft, whether it be pick 108 or whatever?
I'm not sure. I don't know what the list number is at the moment, unfortunately, but I don't see either of those players as having a future anything beyond being depth at Melbourne. So
yeah, have to agree with that. Again, I don't know the ins and outs of it exactly, but I believe that if we delist those 2, then we would have 5 spaces available either on the senior list and the rookie lists, the 2 rookie lists. But as Grapevine said, I don't see they're just depth. Obviously, there wasn't any interest from other clubs about them. Both of them have been on our list for a good amount of time and really haven't shown anything that would necessarily warrant them staying. How much depth do you need, or do you take the risk with someone off a rookie list? We've done reasonably well with rookie lists over the years, and a lot of other clubs have as well. Putting a player into those areas and seeing how they develop, you're not going to get anything more out of Billy or JKH than what you see today. I don't see any problem with delisting.
The other one we didn't talk about was there's been the word that we might pick up as a delisted free agent, Sam Murray from Collingwood. He wasn't offered a contract in Collingwood. He's the player that was banned for was it 2 years, I think, or a year?
10 weeks.
Oh, was it only 10 weeks? Okay, so he couldn't get back into the team after that. That was for the
Oh, sorry, that was Jaden Stevenson, 10 weeks, wasn't it?
Yes, no, I'll take Jaden Stevenson. But Sam Murray, I think that was the cocaine charge. Apparently he's cleaned himself up. Would you give him a shot? All I've seen from him, I saw a couple of highlights they put on. I was impressed with the highlights. His kicking wasn't great, but sort of puts his body on the line, took some great marks, some tackles, has quite a bit of pace as well. From what you've seen, would you give him a go? Great.
I haven't seen anything.
You haven't seen anything. All right. Perhaps go on to the Sam Murray thread and we'll get back to me in a few weeks' time.
but particularly after the Elliott event, I'm very conscious about, do we really trust Collingwood to give players away? And if they are, why are they doing it? So.
Grapevine, have you seen anything of Sam Murray?
No, I haven't. I can't add too much on that front either, I'm afraid.
Well, maybe I'll have to get some new co-hosts that actually follow what's going on.
Exactly.
Hang out looking at players who haven't played for 2 years.
The other one that people on Demonland are keen to, I don't know if I am, considering his injury history, and I don't know if anyone will throw him a lifeline. Bennell, is it Harley Bennell from Freo, who's had multiple calf issues? Would you throw him a lifeline?
Pass.
George?
Yeah, I'd have to say calf injuries have an unfortunate habit of recurring again, and then he's got his off-field problems as well. It's an awful big investment compared to, say, someone like a Sam Murray, who doesn't have those that other baggage hanging over his head, sort of thing. So, and once again, we have to trust the football department. They know more than us. That they would have been looking at these guys and seeing whether there is any value to be had there. I simply don't know. So we'll take what their expertise throws up for us.
All right. Well, boys, thank you very much for joining us in this special edition trade wrap-up. It's always fun to go over the trades. Hopefully we excuse me. Hopefully we do something in at the draft that's worth getting excited about. Need to inject some youth into this team, and hopefully we get some 300 plus players out of this. When is the draft, by the way? And he is mid-November.
Yeah, I can't remember.
Anyway. All right. Well, I think that's where we'll end proceedings tonight. Thank you, George, for joining us, and Grapeviney, you too. Thank you very much, and we'll see you guys perhaps after the draft.
Thank you very much, Andy. See you.
All right. Thanks, guys.
Come on.